Integration, the ever-prevalent problem in the data atmosphere due to the vast amount of different data tools and services that are available to us. It was for this reason that Microsoft Fabric was created, to give us a single, unified, end-to-end analytical solution. But what if you or your organization works with the Power Platform as well? More specifically, Dataverse. Well, then the question will be, can you integrate your data in Dataverse with Fabric? The answer to that question, thankfully, is yes. So in this video, we are talking top 3 ways to integrate Dataverse with Microsoft Fabric. Let's get into it. To start, let's talk about some of the prerequisites to perform these 3 tasks. First, you must have a Power BI Premium or a Fabric capacity in the same Azure geographical region as your Dataverse environment. Of course, you also must have the ability to create Fabric artifacts as well. You'll also need a system administrator security role in the Dataverse environment that you'll be connecting to. Additionally, you're going to need to be an administrator of the Power BI or Fabric workspace, as well as be a capacity administrator. Understanding this, let's take a look at our first method of integrating Dataverse into Fabric. The first method of integrating Dataverse with Fabric is using Fabric shortcuts. In Fabric, a shortcut is a connection between Fabric and other storage systems, whether internal or external. Shortcuts virtualize data into a single data product without any data movement or data duplication. This is all without changing ownership of the data. A shortcut is nothing more than a symbolic link which points from one data location to another. Just like you can create shortcuts in Windows or Linux, the data will appear in the shortcut location as if it were physically there. Now that we understand this really cool feature, let's jump over to Fabric and see how we can leverage shortcuts with Dataverse. Here I am at app.powerbi.com. What I've already done for this video is create a Lakehouse that we're going to use to make shortcuts to Dataverse. So our first step is to jump to the Lakehouse Explorer so that we can get started. I'll select my Lakehouse, and here I am at my Lakehouse Explorer. Making shortcuts is very, very intuitive and very easy. So watch how quickly we can get this done. When I see my tables and my files section under my Explorer tab, you can go to Tables and select the ellipsis right next to it. Now you have this nice button that says New Shortcut. Once I select that, you can see it's going to ask me, where am I getting my data for this shortcut? We know for this video, that's going to be Dataverse. I'll go over to the right, select Dataverse, and now it's going to ask me, do I want to use an existing connection to Dataverse, or do I want to create a new connection? What we'll do is create a new connection. And once we select this, it's going to ask us for something very specific, the environment domain. Let me show you where we can find the environment domain so we can plug it in here and connect to Dataverse. If you go to your make.powerapps.com, then go up to your settings gear. Next, you can go to the Admin Center, and once you select Admin Center, it will open up a new tab, and we only have a few more steps to get that environment domain. Here I am in the Admin Center, and all I need to do is select Environments. Once I do, it's going to show me the environments that I currently have available. I'm going to go ahead and select my Zane Goodman Demos environment. And just like that, it gives me my environment URL that I can use over in Fabric. So let's go ahead and copy this, and then we'll head right back over to Fabric. And jump right back over to Fabric. And underneath environment domain, I can paste this URL right here. And the only other thing that I need to do to connect is simply select sign in. You can see under authentication kind, we only have organizational account as an option. So I'll select sign in, It will prompt me with the different users I can sign in as. I'll select my account, and here I am. I am good to go to select next, and once I do, it's gonna take a moment to load, and then we'll be able to see the different tables that we can shortcut over into Fabric. That was pretty quick, and you can see under CDS2, this is now showing me every single table that I have in Dataverse. Now, the only thing I have left to do is select which tables that I want to bring over. So if you have specific tables that you've created, this is going to be where you will be able to choose exactly what you want to bring over as a shortcut into Fabric. For us today, I'll select my account partition table, and I'll scroll down and find my contact table as well. That's all I'm going to bring over. These two tables are automatically created for you in Dataverse when you provision a Dataverse environment. Now that I have the account and contact table selected, I can simply select next, and it brings me to my next page where I am able to edit the names of my tables. So I'll select this edit button here, and I'll get rid of the partitioned part of the name, and I'll only name this table account. And I'll do the same thing for my contact table as well. And just like that, I've renamed both of these tables. I can select create, and you can watch the magic happen. Just like that, it says it's launching the shortcut, and you can see right here under tables, I have account and I have contact table. I've renamed these tables. I've made a shortcut from Dataverse into Fabric. And at this point, now that I have these tables in my Delta Parquet format, I will be able to jump in my SQL Analytics endpoint. I could then leverage this Dataverse data there. I could bring it into a semantic model and use it inside of a Power BI report. There's a lot that I can do with this data that we've just shortcutted over to Fabric. That is going to be our first method for integrating your data from Dataverse into Microsoft Fabric. Let's go ahead, jump over, and we'll start our second method. Our second method involves using a feature in Power Apps called Link to Fabric. By using this method to connect to Fabric, we can establish a direct and secure link between your Dataverse data and a Fabric workspace, which eliminates the need for a storage account or Synapse workspace. When you connect to Fabric from Power Apps, the system generates an optimized replica of your data in Delta Parquet format, which is the native format for Fabric and OneLake. This process uses Dataverse storage, ensuring that your operational workloads remain unaffected. The replica is governed and secured by Dataverse, staying within the same region as your Dataverse environment, while allowing Fabric workloads to operate on this data seamlessly. Now, for some time, we have had what's called the Azure Synapse link. So I'd like to take some time to look at the pros and cons of the Azure Synapse link and Link to Fabric for all of my friends out there that are used to working in Azure, specifically using that Azure Synapse link. Using Link to Fabric requires no data copy. It also doesn't require any ETL direct integration with Fabric. While using the Azure Synapse link, we can export data to a storage account and integrate with Synapse and Fabric. But when using the Link to Fabric, the data stays in Dataverse while having secure access to the data in Fabric. While when you're using Azure Synapse Link, the data stays in the storage account that you've linked to, and you have to manage access to users there instead of Dataverse. Additionally, all tables will be linked to Fabric by default when you use the Fabric link. But with the Azure Synapse link, the system administrators can choose which table to link to. Lastly, Link to Fabric does consume additional Dataverse storage, while the Azure Synapse link consumes your own storage as well as other compute and integration tools. Understanding this, let's see how we can use the Link to Fabric feature. Here I am at make.powerapps.com. And what I want to do is figure out where I can find my feature to link to Microsoft Fabric. It's very easy to find. All we need to do is select Tables in our panel selector over on the left side of our screen. And once we do, we're going to find all of the tables that we currently have inside of Dataverse. Now, what we can do from this point is go ahead and link right to Fabric, but there is a very important note to make here. When you want to link to Microsoft Fabric, whatever tables you are linking must have a specific setting turned on. So if I go to my account table that I have here and select the ellipses and then select Properties, this is going to bring me to the settings of this table. If I select Advanced Options and scroll down, we want to make sure that under For this table, we have Track Changes enabled. If you do not have this enabled, the table will not move over to Fabric. That being said, let's go ahead and start linking our Dataverse to Fabric. So I'll select Cancel here, I'll deselect this table, and you can see underneath Analyze, once I select that, I can now select Link to Microsoft Fabric. Once this is selected, it is going to bring me through this very nice UI experience and bring me step by step into everything I need to make sure is good to go before I can actually make this link happen. What it's going to do here is make sure that we have access to a Power BI and Fabric capacity. The second thing it wants to know is our connection settings. What Dataverse environment will we be connecting to? Well, remember what we said earlier, the way in which that we go and get that environment URL is simply going to the admin center. Knowing that, I can get rid of this just to show you. If you did not know it, or if it was not a saved connection, you would paste it right here, select your organizational account authentication kind, and then select Sign In. For me, I know which my environment domain is going to be. It remembers that I've made this connection, so now I can select Save Connection, and once I've done that, I can select Next. The next step here is going to be, we need to select a Microsoft Fabric workspace. So I'll select the workspace we're using for today's video, which is my testing workspace. Once I do this, I can select Next, and then I can select Create. Now, I'm not going to select Create now, but we're gonna pretend that I did. The reason I'm not going to is because this process can take well over an hour. Because one of the drawbacks of using this method is that you cannot choose which tables you are bringing over to Fabric. Every single table is going to be brought over by default. This takes a long time because every single table has to be converted to that Delta Parquet format in order for you to work with that data inside of Fabric. So instead, we're going to work some magic. We'll jump back over to Fabric where I've already created a different link, and we'll see what we have to work with. So let's go ahead, go back over. Here I am back in Microsoft Fabric, and what we're going to do now is head over to my workspace. Something really cool has happened here since I've made this Fabric link. As you can see, I have the Lakehouse that we were just working with to create a shortcut, but I also have this Dataverse Lakehouse. When we use the Link to Fabric feature inside of Power Apps, it creates a Lakehouse for us. It creates a semantic model as well as a SQL endpoint also. So what we'll do is select this Lakehouse and take a look at what we have. After this takes a moment to load, you can see that every single table that I had in my Dataverse environment has now been loaded here. So now that we have all of our tables from Dataverse inside of Fabric, we are now able to leverage these tables and the data inside of them with other data that we have inside of our OneLake. We can bring it into a semantic model, we can query it using SQL or another type of engine. But our next question, now that we have the tables inside of Fabric, is how can we manage these tables and how can we refresh them when necessary? To do that, we exclusively need to go back over to make.powerapps.com, and I'll show you the way that we can get this done. So here I am at make.powerapps.com. Right now, I still have my tables section selected, but whenever we want to manage tables that we've made a link to over in Fabric, we need to use what's called the Azure Synapse link. You more than likely do not see this under your left panel. So if you don't see it and you would like to pin it there, you just need to select More, go to Discover All, scroll on down under Data Management, and you can see we have our Azure Synapse link section right here. From here, you could pin it or unpin it, whatever you'd like to do. For now, let's head over to our Azure Synapse link, and at this point, we can take a look at the connection that we have made to Fabric. After it takes a moment to load, we can see that I have my Microsoft OneLake connection right here. If I wanted to manage the tables that I have over in Fabric, I can simply select this connection and then select Manage Tables. So here I have all of the tables that we just saw over in Microsoft Fabric. I can scroll through here, see what I have to work with, but there is a drawback. Using this feature, we cannot deselect certain tables. All of them have to be over there. But another cool feature is, if we ever want to create a new table inside of Dataverse and bring that over using the same link to Fabric, we can do that. That process would simply look like you creating a table inside of Dataverse, then jumping over to this pop-out view where we can manage the tables. You can find the table by filtering by the table name. You can select that table, then select Save, and that should bring that table over to Fabric. However, it still is a fairly long process. It does need to convert the data to Delta Parquet format. So after you have made that connection to your new table, and after you select Save, the next step that you would want to make is to look at a more detailed view of all the tables that you have in Fabric. We can do this by simply selecting our link. Once I do this, it is going to bring me to this detailed view of everything that I have over in Fabric, if it's connected and if the table has been virtualized over in Fabric. So here I have a detailed view of every table I have virtualized in Fabric, and we can see a lot of information here. When you initially set up the link, your Fabric status is not going to show created. It's going to show that the table has not been created yet, and it's also going to show here that it is still syncing to Fabric. So whenever you add another table to your Fabric link, you simply need to go here, check if it's been made over inside of Fabric, and once it says that it has, you can simply come up here and select Refresh Fabric Tables, and once this has been completed, that table should now show up inside of Fabric. The last point to make about this feature is that it is very important that you do not delete any of these tables you've made a link to inside of Fabric. You always want to manage the tables right here inside of your Power Apps account. The good news is, if you happen to delete a table that you have linked inside of Fabric, you can simply come right back over to make.powerapps.com, come to your Azure Synapse link, and select Refresh Fabric Tables, which would then make sure that that table is placed right back inside of that Lakehouse that has been created for you. This has been our second method of connecting our data inside of Dataverse to Microsoft Fabric. Now that we've finished this, let's go ahead and jump into our last method, using Fabric pipelines. All right, everybody, now I have come back over to app.powerbi.com. I'm in the same workspace that we have been working in for this video, and we are going to create a data pipeline. I added the data pipeline as the third method because the first method and the second method virtualize the tables in Fabric, but you may need to actually copy the data and place it inside your OneLake permanently. Now, before we get started with the pipeline, I do want to mention you should absolutely check out our on-demand learning platform where you can find for free our Fabric Analyst in a Day course that dives in a bit deeper specifically in Fabric. And by the way, if you want to check out the other 160 courses we have, there's also a 40% off link in the description. Let's go ahead and create this data pipeline. What I'm going to do now that I'm in my workspace is select New Item. Once I do, I can come on down until I find Data Pipeline. Now I can give it a name and I'll call it Connect to Dataverse. I'll select create, and this pipeline will be created for me, which is beautiful. Now it's going to bring me to where I can start adding in new activities to this pipeline. So I'll select pipeline activity here, and I want to use the copy data activity. Once I've done this, I can give it a name if I would like. I can add in a description as well. But what I really care about is my source. My source is when I select this dropdown, I can select more, and you would not believe it, it's going to bring me to a familiar page where I can select Dataverse as the data I'm connecting to. Now, of course, I do need to give this an environment domain, so I'll do that now. And I can select to connect. After I select connect, it is going to define that as my source, and all I need to do is define now my destination. I can also go in here and choose my entity name. Entity here means table. So it says here that it is currently loading, and now it's ready for me to choose. So I can come through here, I can select any table that I would like. We'll just use action card for this example. I can now go to my destination, and here it's going to ask us, where are we copying this data to? Of course, today we're going to use the Lakehouse that we have been working with so far. So I'll select my dropdown, I'll select more. So now all I need to do is come down to my OneLake data hub. I can see my Lakehouse that we've been working with. I can select to connect to that Lakehouse. And now that I have this connection set up, the only thing I need to do now is give my table a name. So I'll just call this test table, and we are good to go. At this point, the only thing that I need to do is come over to my Run tab, select Run, then I can save this pipeline, run the pipeline, and just like that, I have now copied the data from Dataverse permanently into my Lakehouse if that is something that I need to get done. This has been our top 3 ways to connect our data in Dataverse over into Fabric. Now remember that Fabric is a huge and new product with updates constantly coming out. So make sure that you tell me down in the comments, what Fabric topic do you want to learn about next? I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then I'll see you in the next one.